Welcome back to the Business of Art, wannabes and creators. Today on the show, we have Angela Lauria. Angela runs the author incubator that has created over 270 best-selling authors. That is incredible. And I wanted to have her on the show to talk about what makes a best-selling author and also how to run an informational business online. Obviously, this is something that I have a lot of interest in because I've been talking about it for the past couple of years, how I want to run courses and mentorships and one-on-one coaching, and it was great to pick her brain about all of that stuff. Before we get into the show, a lot of people have been asking me about Kickstarter recently since our Kickstarter raised over $27,000. And I have a lot to say about the topic, but I just need some time to decompress, think, and get a little bit better. I don't feel so great today, and I haven't felt so great since the Kickstarter ended, so I want to recover, put my thoughts together, and then I will do an episode on it. However, if you are just jonesing for some Kickstarter knowledge, head on over to thebusinessofart.us/Kickstarter toolkit and check out everything I've had to say on the topic for the past few years. And you know what? Take the course. The course is only $97 and it's basically a guidebook for everything you need to know to create, launch, and fund your campaign. It is going to return you way more than $97. So head on over to thebusinessofart.us/Kickstarter toolkit and check it out today. And now on with the show. Take it away, Angela. Tell us what you're passionate about these days.
Well, it's interesting because I think what happens as you start to grow is different things grab your attention. So right now, what I'm really focused on is building an amazing team and building a really passionate and committed team. But it's not necessarily what I recommend for everybody when they are first starting out. But I think as your message grows and as you really identify who you are and what DNA you want to bring onto the team, it becomes a really fun challenge. It feels like I got a new board game because now I'm like, oh, what are all these pieces and where do I move these pieces and what's the strategy behind these different moves? So here's what I've been doing. It's super sexy. I've been building org charts. I feel like I'm back in corporate. But it actually is really fun when you kind of have a vision that just doesn't grow on your own. It requires other people.
You know, this is one of the things that we talk about on the show a lot, which is like I find all of these things fun, like the org charts, the brand building, the going out and speaking, all of these things that like when I started writing, I was like, ugh, those are going to be the worst. Now that it's for my business, now that it's for my brand, and now that it's servicing a thing that I love, I'm much more interested in all of those things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's like, you know, when people have babies and like babies seem like no fun until you have one. And then you're like, and then he ate a banana. You know, it's like clearly boring if you're not at that place.
But how did you know? So how did you know when it was time to sort of grow your team from one to and add more people on it?
I mean, it's really workload. I mean, I think for me, the hardest thing about hiring is that you have to do it before you're ready. So you have to kind of project what your workload is going to be. So I know we've got a bunch of stuff coming. Like this is such a weird thing, but we've made a lot of videos with our authors. So we interview authors. We do case studies. I actually did one today. But we do a case study about every month, and we do these red carpet book launches where we interview authors on their red carpet. And we've been doing it for years using a $70 webcam from the Best Buy down the street. And we just upgraded all of our equipment to HD. So we spent, I don't know, lots of money, $20,000, $30,000 on lights and cameras and a producer. And we're doing a kind of a 3-camera shot now for our events. And we're building sets and all this stuff. And it's super, super cool. But what I know is going to happen is we're going to have all this HD video now, and there are all these different ways that we want to use it. So we're setting up like an Apple TV channel and syndicating content. So even though right now that stuff's not generating revenue, so I don't really want to spend even more money on it, once you make an investment in your business, you have to start to see what's the fallout 6 months from now. So I know 6 months from now, I'm going to need content syndicators with kind of AV industry experience. So I'm hiring them now, even though it's super scary.
Oh man, yeah, that sounds incredibly scary. But I love this because it's sort of in that middle time between like when you watch like Lisa Sasevich or like Gary Vee have this like $1 million setup, and back when you watch like their first videos and it's like, oh, this guy just had a webcam, and you're kind of like living this transition like right now as we're speaking.
Right. It's very interesting when when you've been putting offers out there for years and you have a business that's like making money, you know, people are buying your books, people are watching your stuff. And then to have the difference, to know what that difference is like when you have an idea that really hits. Like when it doesn't feel like you're pushing a boulder uphill, but when you're like running to chase it downhill, it's a very different feeling. So I've definitely been on both sides of the boulder.
Yeah, you know, and I kind of we talked about beforehand that I'm doing this launch for this new project, and we're getting this every day. We're not like slowing down the amount of money we're making. It's like the same steady, and I'm used to like chasing people down for $1 and like I don't want to say hitting them over the head and begging, but like I'm going to because I can't think of something else right now. But like, and now I'm watching like hundreds of dollars roll in every single day from this campaign with me doing, I don't want to say very little because it's a lot, and it's a lot of like going out and getting press and doing all this stuff. But it's not like I'm not posting 50 Facebook posts to please go buy my book this time, and it's not slowed down. I keep wondering when it's going to slow down and kind of hoping it's not. But I feel like maybe today is the first day ever that I've been able to actually understand what you're saying from an "it's happening to me" scenario.
Yeah, I mean, the hustle part of it, I think, is required to really get your message, to really get clear on who you are. You start to shift. But then you have to use those same skills that you use to keep pushing, even when it was hard, even when like you got your idea, but nobody else got it. You need those same skills then to keep yourself from living in that place of, I hope the other shoe doesn't drop. Right. So I think that's the big feeling is like, oh my God, now this is catching. I have to make it happen. And once you get into that, like grabby, trying, really wanting it to work space, you become less attractive and it becomes a lot harder. So using those same muscles of I can hustle and continuing to work harder than anyone else, like continuing to hustle and at the same time being able to like see and receive what's happening, it's a totally different balance.
Yeah, for sure. And for instance, the day that I woke up on this campaign and we had done $5,000 the first day, I was like, I need a PR company. I need it like yesterday. And like, it's one of those, it's much different than like, how am I going to get like an extra $1,000 today? It became more like, okay, this is a thing. Like, it's got a lot of momentum. Right. How do I keep the momentum going by like doing ads and doing like, and hiring PR companies and all these things that you can do to leverage, which is a lot different, like you said, than pushing up the hill. Now you're like almost in front of it, digging the trench so it doesn't slow down.
Exactly. Yep.
So can you take us back from, you've done, I see on your website, 250 bestsellers. Can we go back to like bestseller number one and sort of talk about maybe even before bestseller number one and talk a little bit about your story and how you got here today?
Yeah. And here's the thing I want to tell you is before bestseller number one, what happened was I was a pretty successful book coach. So I happened to work mostly with nonfiction authors, but in my first 3 years in business, I had a full-time job and I was hustling on the side as a coach, a full-time and then eventually part-time. And I was hustling on the side evenings and weekends as a book coach. And unlike a lot of people who are starting a business or a side hustle, I had clients right away, which was awesome. In fact, in 3 years, I had 256 clients, which is pretty impressive. except for one thing. Only one of those 256 clients finished her book. And so I was at this point where I was not making enough money to quit my job. I didn't have any amazing success story. Well, I had one amazing success story, but I didn't have any like amazing case studies besides Jill Farmer. And I wasn't sure what good I was doing in the world. Like, people liked me. I had great testimonials. They were like, Angela's amazing. She helped me so much with my book. But they weren't really leading to what Seth Godin calls shipping. People weren't getting it done. And so I decided I was going to make one last attempt, and then I was going to go, at that point I was part-time. So I was going to go back to full-time work. If I couldn't, publish some books. So my goal was to publish 5 books, and I gave myself 3 months and 10 clients. So I figured if I could do 10 clients in 3 months, and this was in September of 2013. So I decided before Christmas, I wanted to publish 5 authors. So I took on 10 authors, and I said, if you are totally committed to doing your book and you're willing to finish it in 3 months, I will give you an amazing deal. And it was an amazing deal. And of the 10 people, not only did all 10 finish, but all 10 became bestsellers. And 5 of them actually generated over $100,000 from their books. So that was the beginning, and I'm going to blow the whole surprise of this show and tell you the magical secret sauce. And all of your listeners will disagree and not listen to me. But here it is. You ready?
Yes, of course. Please.
Writing a book with a community around you. So we kind of gamified the system. So all 10 authors had the same deadlines. It's not a group book, so it's not one book. Everyone writes their own book. They were on completely different topics, but they all had the same deadlines. So we did weekly calls. I still do it this way. Calls are now Tuesdays at 4. At that time, they were Tuesdays at noon. But we switched it to 4 because I have so many authors from Australia and New Zealand and England, and that was a time that worked for everybody. But yeah, we did weekly group calls. Everybody has a weekly assignment. Everybody says what they're going to write that week, and then they turn it in. And the whole group, what I learned was nobody wanted to be the one person who didn't finish. They didn't want to let the group down. And then we did a group launch. So a lot of people will teach about JV launches and how to get other bloggers to promote your book launch day. You could even with a crowdfunding campaign. People have, backers who are promoting their campaigns from the beginning. What's different if you have written a book with people is you've all got something amazing to promote, but you also have this brotherhood or sisterhood from having gone through the experience together. So I think NaNoWriMo has caught on to this a little bit, but it's so big, it's easy to get lost in the crowd and not finish. But since that first group back in September of 2013, we have never had anyone not finish. We have never had one of our authors not hit bestseller status. And better than 50% of our authors are generating at least $10,000 a month from their books.
I would say that's pretty incredible. And how many times have you run that? Do you run it constantly, or is it like...
We pretty much run it constantly. I don't even think I can... I used to know the numbers, but we did it once in 2013. We did it 4 times in 2014, and then we did it 10 times in 2015 and 10 times in 2016. So something like 25. Oh yeah. And we do 10 books a time. So that's how you get to the 250. We actually have done one launch now in 2017. I'm kind of dating the podcast, but so we're a little bit over 250 authors, but yeah, that's how that number was arrived upon.
Do you think it's so as far as hitting the bestseller status, do you think that it's about all of you guys pushing at the beginning and having a successful first couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's a hack. I mean, it works the same way that crowdfunding campaigns do and the same way YouTube videos do. The day your book launches, you have the best shot with the algorithm. So you just want to set up, like, obviously I shouldn't tell you about crowdfunding because you know more about it than I do. But if I were launching a crowdfunding campaign, I wouldn't launch and have a bunch of crickets and then 2 weeks later have people donate. If I was doing a crowdfunding campaign, I'd have like 10 people ready to make a donation in the first couple hours so that whatever my goal was, I was halfway there pretty quickly. And then you're obviously going to rise to the top in the search rankings because it's going to look like a hot campaign. Like, hey, this campaign just came out. And then it's about having steady momentum, ongoing momentum for those first couple weeks. So we just have our authors get a book launch team, and the book launch team gets assigned, days and weeks when they'll be doing downloading and promoting it to their list. So over the first 30 days, which is what we focus on, we want to make sure we come out of the gate strong and then have 30 days of strong sales, and that keeps us high in the rankings, which it's all about being able to play the algorithms from our perspective.
That's incredible because like that works with Reddit, it works with YouTube, as you mentioned. It works with Kindle. Clearly, as you're talking about, is there a way, like, let's say somebody has a book on Amazon now, and like maybe they've had it on for 2 months and it's not really doing much. Is there a way to like recover from that?
No. Yes, you can do a campaign. So you can do a targeted campaign anytime, but you can never get back that launch juice. It's very hard, but you want to make sure if you need to do something like that, you want to make sure you're concentrating your sales. A lot of people spread their sales out, or they'll launch their video, they'll launch their book or their podcast. And then it's been so much work to launch it, and it feels so satisfying to one's ego to hit publish that they think, oh, after it's published, then I'm going to spend time on the marketing. You got to do all the marketing even before you write the thing.
This is so nice to hear because like it's the stuff that I talk about in like, because I don't do much. I have done a Kindle Scout campaign, but I mostly focus on crowdfunding and shows. So hearing the same exact things working with like Amazon is very gratifying to me because it's pretty much what I say is once you hit publish, your book is either your campaign is either funded or not funded, like that
100%.
moment.
I can't believe we didn't talk about this beforehand. That's exactly what I say. I say 90% of your marketing is baked into the book. Once you hit publish, your success has been already decided.
Absolutely. And like, so for when people ask me like this 5K launch and 5-figure launch, and they say, what did you do? What is the game? And I'm like, it's doing like 3 months of work or 6 months of work before you hit the button and making sure everyone knows that when you hit the button, it's time to rock and roll.
Yep. Totally.
It's incredible that like I've heard people that like launch physical products that this is like very similar to, like it seems like all launches across, and I'm big on like seeing the pattern in things. Mm-hmm. Pretty much all launches are the same, but I have this huge fear of Amazon because, and Kickstarter and a show, it's very easy to stand out, because like you do a big project. There's not, the audience is not like 200 million people like it is on Amazon. So you just have to focus on like that very small group of people who are going to back your Kickstarter campaign or find you at a show. But it doesn't sound like it's that much different on Amazon, is it?
Nope. What I talk about your 12 disciples. Who are the people who are going to be most behind this? Because one of the biggest mistakes that people make with a book is they're trying to reach everyone. And I'm like, don't worry about everyone. Don't worry about the big message. Worry about your inner circle. How do we get those people?
Right. So if you were to put together a launch team for one of how many people would you recommend to be on this team, assuming that you don't have a group of people to write a book with? Let's say you're just like one person.
Yeah, no, my number is 12.
12. Okay, so it is 12 disciples, 12 people who are going to be...
Just because it's easy to remember. Right. I'll just say the 12 disciples. But it's around that number because I think it has to be a small enough group that you can actually manage, and they have to be invested enough. And then from there, that's your inner circle, that's your launch team. And then from there, What I say the next number is 144, and that's just because it's 12 times 12. So I just say each of the 12 people finds 12 people. And that is who we want them to promote the book to. And literally we want the 12 people on your launch team to make a list of 12 people that they think will like your book. And they will literally hit send on a personal email or pick up the phone and make a personal phone call and say, hey, I'm totally loving this book. Can you do me a favor and download it today?
That's almost identical to the launch strategy that I had for this anthology.
Your listeners need to know we did not plan this. I'm totally blown away right now.
It is not cool. This is the thing that so about a year ago, maybe not a year, about a year ago, I did this thing called Kickstarter University. It was this membership site, and it failed miserably right around this time last year, just because I found that a lot of people were asking me, can you use these strategies for Amazon? And I said, I've never done it for Amazon, but you can use the exact same book launch strategies for literally anything on any platform.
Totally. But here's the thing. If you tried to sell the concept of launch strategies in any way, so you're just like in any way hoping that people will find it and you're just going to put it everywhere. So it's launching on Instagram or launching on Snapchat or launching on Kickstarter, like it doesn't really matter. No one can find you. But if you focus on, let's say, doing crowdfunding campaigns on Kickstarter and you're super specific, what happens is people will come to you, and I call this having something to push against. So they'll come to you and they'll be like, I know you normally do this for Kickstarter, but what would you say if I was launching a book? Or what would you say if I was doing this? Or would you help me, even though I know you don't normally work with people who are launching swim teams, can you help me launch this swim team? And then here's the magic. You get to be in a position where you get to say yes or no because they know they're not in your sweet spot. And if you think you can help them and you say yes, you're in a much more powerful or alpha role with them, and they're much more likely to listen to you. Now, when your clients are asking to work with you instead of you begging to work with them, and therefore they feel honored to have the opportunity to work with you, they will show up more and work harder. They will get better results. And as a consequence, you will get better case studies. When you get better case studies, you get more referrals and you spend less on marketing. So it's a virtuous circle. And that's why I always want to set up our authors to be an expert. I call it, I ask them, what's the mountain that you want to be the king or queen of? And so if you're the king or queen of one mountain and you're super specific about it, you'll get a very wide diversity of clients across all different spectrums. You'll be able to help everyone if you're specific about trying to help one person in particular.
I love that. How I always define it is I say, I want you to find one human being, an actual real human being who you think will resonate with. That's so funny.
We call it our ideal reader. So they have to only write their book as a love letter to their ideal reader. And I actually got that concept from a book called, it's my favorite book of all time. It's a book called Letters to a Young Poet by Rilke. And Rilke went to a military school and was from a military family in Vienna at the turn of the last century. And he left military school and became a poet. And about 10 years behind him in the same school, there was another guy from a military family. And he was debating whether or not going on to officer school in the military in Vienna or becoming a poet. So he wrote Rilke an actual letter. And he's like, hey, like, you went to school here. You're a successful poet. What do you think I should do? And Rilke went on to write one of the best-selling books of all time, which is Letters to a Young Poet. And if you're listening and you haven't read it, go get it immediately. But that book was literally a love letter from Rilke to Franz Kafis 200 years ago about whether or not you should be a poet or an officer in the military. Like, none of those things could be further from my life. Like, I'm not I don't come from a military family. It's not 200 years ago. I'm not a guy. I don't have that decision. And yet every single thing in that book relates to me. And I've read the book over 100 times. I've done multiple podcasts. I've bought probably 200 copies of the book, maybe more. I read a passage from the book in every class I teach. I've taught hundreds of thousands of people about this book, but it's about whether or not I should be a poet or a military officer. How could that be about me? Right? But that is the power of writing to one person, is it becomes universal. Through the specific, we are able to make a much bigger, more universal impact.
For sure. I mean, you can go back to the Bible, and like a lot of the biggest passages were like letter from Paul to a person. Or you go to
Never thought that.
oh yeah, and we like even like Tim Ferriss loves Seneca, and he talks about Seneca's letters. It's like a lot of these very famous like instances are like one person putting their spin on writing to one human being. And I tell them, like, just go to Facebook and find the person who likes your stuff the most and just write to that person. And that's probably you don't not necessarily going to be perfect, but there's a pretty good chance that like your stuff's going to be way better if you like just try to like convince or talk to like your third cousin twice removed who loves all your posts than if you're trying to talk to just the community of a whole bunch of people nebulously.
Yeah, I say you start sounding like a Wikipedia entry. Like nobody's life was changed by a Wikipedia entry. I'm glad it's out there, but if you're trying to make a difference and build a movement, you got to talk to people like they're actual people who you actually care about.
All right. And so one of the things that I learned recently was you want them to have the epiphany that that they need to do a thing instead of like you telling them what they need to do. And I think that is also like by talking to one person, you can kind of because
Not
you're
a douchebag.
Yeah, well,
what happens when you're talking to everyone is what I say is you're like force feeding them. Like, this is what you should do. But if it was really somebody in front of you, you'd be like, hey, I totally get why you're thinking this is the right thing to do. And here's what I want you to just like try out. So you don't sound so pushy. Nothing sounds as forced because you're actually thinking of a person in a more holistic way instead of saying like meditation is an excellent way to connect with, like you start sounding like a robot and you're just trying to force your ideas on people.
Right, and you end up getting a much more pointedly developed voice because you're talking to one person, and the way that you're talking to John is going to be much different than the way you're talking to like your cousin who went to a nunnery, Maria, and the one who like became a corporate executive, and Tom. Like those three people, you're going to have much different conversations with and talk to them in a much different way, and then resonate with a much
more
different
intimate way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not that talking to any, like, I could have a conversation with all three of those people, but it's certainly going to resonate with a different group of, a different person every time that depending on who I'm talking to.
Yep, totally.
So, all right. So so you have this community that you've built, which is something that I'm trying to do now with the business of art and want to be present. Frankly, like I totally wanted to have you on the show to ask these questions for myself, and I hope that the audience really likes it. Which is, if you were to go back and try and start building this community now, like what would be like the top 3 things you would tell somebody to make it go quicker for you? Man, I wish there was a better way to say that.
Mm-hmm.
To supercharge your growth.
I got some stuff for you. Here's the first thing. One of the things I think I was doing wrong at the beginning is I would look at people who had communities that I wanted, and I would try and copy what they were doing. And copy it, and I don't even mean that in a bad way. Like put my spin on it, do it my way, right? But what I realized is there are different techniques for different stages in your development. So there are things, I'm just going to use as like a comical example. Nobody would do this, but it would give you an idea. There are things Beyonce can do that I can't do. So she could drop an album at midnight, and by morning, she's going to be whatever her version of number one bestseller is, right? She could drop a book at midnight and she'd be a number one bestseller right the next morning. So I can't do that. There are techniques that people who have communities I want can use now that I can't use. So I think people often look to people who are ahead of them and then try and copy their advertising or their marketing or their branding in their style. And I definitely did that, but they're missing that. They're copying the wrong people. They need to go back and copy that person, but 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. So I think that's the biggest thing. And again, I'm saying copying and it sounds negative in my head when I'm saying it. But what I mean is really just get inspired by or get ideas from.
Modeling. We call it modeling on the business of art.
Perfect. That's what I meant. Modeling. So don't model yourself after people who are ahead of you where they are now. So the number one thing I hear is there's a particular author named Brene Brown. And everyone will tell me, I want to be the Brene Brown of X or Y, whatever they do. And so I'm like, great. So here's what Brene Brown did. She spent 20 years as a research academic tenured professor in a state university. So I would go get your PhD. I would make that my first step. And they're like, but I don't want to spend 20 years. I'm like, well, then she's the wrong person to copy, because a lot of her creds came from not just the publications themselves, but the experience of being the person who did that research. So find someone to model who it makes sense for you to model. I see people doing this wrong over and over. So that's one thing. The next thing I would say for sure is identifying who that, we call it the ideal reader is, but who that person is and what would make them take action. Not what you want them to take action, but what really does cause them to take action. So what is the conversation that you can get into that's going on inside of their heads? And I think people do this work a lot of times and then they lose track because they're thinking about big numbers. So the last piece of advice that I'll share is just think in terms of small numbers. If you I wrote a book that's called The Incubated Author, 10 Steps to Start a Movement with Your Message. And if you want to start a movement with your message, you have to focus on a problem that people are moving away from rather than some greater goal that they're moving towards. So smaller numbers of people who are more critically interested in what you're doing. And that could be regional. People have a regional interest in what you're doing. It could be vertically interested in what you're doing, but really focusing. So if I was doing a comic book and it was about a coming of age comic book about finding your passion, which there's probably a million comic books about, I would find an intersection that you really know about, and maybe that's going to law school. And I would then focus even more tightly on Ivy League law schools, and I would focus even more tightly on surviving year 2 of Ivy League law schools, and then take all your coming of age ideas and all those comic ideas and put them in year 2 at Harvard, and then do all your marketing of that only to people who are in year 2 at various Ivy League schools who are going to see themselves in that. Did that make sense?
Yes, it's wonderful advice. Niching down can work even in fiction. I talk about it all the time. I'm learning because I'm doing my first nonfiction book this year called Sell Your Soul, How to Build Your Creative Career, where we focus specifically on people who listen to this podcast pretty much, but people who have been, let's say, a little bit beaten down by art over the years and have tried and bumped up against a wall a bunch of times and just want to learn the fundamental parts of all of this stuff so that they can supercharge their career and actually go from painting the facade to relaying the foundation. But like I said, our readership or our listenership isn't that big, but the people that listen to it are very, very active in in wanting to build a better business and wanting to learn the secrets of success from people like yourself. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah. And so here's my question for you. I want to coach you a little bit on your book. So the idea of selling your soul for your people, your like ideal person who can't wait to buy this book and tell 12 of their friends about it. Are they saying like, dude, I would sell my soul. No one is buying. Like, how do I get someone to buy my soul? Because I'm all in. Is that what they're saying? Is that their dream come true in their words?
No, so the soul is their art, and it's how to sell your art without feeling like you're selling your
No,
soul.
I get that.
So,
But I'm just I want to challenge you on the title because I think that's what you want for them. But I bet it's not what they're saying in their words. Are you with me? Do you hear
I
what
am
I'm
with you. I'm sure with you.
So this is what's so tricky because even if you know this stuff, it's like you don't want to tell someone they're wrong and ask them to buy from you. And the example that I give is I have an author who's amazing. Her name is Caroline Green, and she writes a book series called The Determined Mom's Guides. And it's about how to find work that matters and that works for you and your family. Mostly these are people who want to be able to drop their kids off at school, pick them up, and make $50,000 to $100,000 somewhere in between without sacrificing making dinner and being there for their kids, right? So you got the image. So what she wanted to call her series at the beginning was the Martyr Mom Guides. And I totally get it because these moms are martyrs. They give up themselves to take care of their kids. And she wanted to teach them how to take care of themselves too and how that would ultimately be good for their kids. But the truth is, as soon as you say martyr moms and they identify as a martyr mom, they can't buy that book. And the reason is at that moment, instead of buying your book, they have to be buying a book called How to Raise a Resilient Child, or how to teach your kid to read Swahili before the age of 5, because they're a martyr, right? They can't buy your book. So you don't want to tell people, oh, you're wrong about being a martyr. Buy my book about how you could change. What you want to do is you want to identify something that's true, even true or truer, and in their words. So Caroline's book is The Determined Mom's Guides, because they're determined to give their kids the best life possible, right? And if you're determined to make the right decisions for your family, then having a Determined Mom's Guide to finding meaningful work that's right for your family is totally different than having the Martyr Mom's Guide to taking care of yourself and loving yourself more. Now, materially, inside the book, it's the exact same stuff. So I'm not telling you to change your message about selling your art. And I know we're making a pun, not a pun, but a word play that your soul is your art. But because of that twist of words and what that means for people, I think you run the risk of doing what Caroline was doing, which is like basically saying something that's out of alignment with their value system and not tapping into the part of their value system that they want to raise their hand and identify as. And that's one of the trickiest things really to building a movement is being in total integrity with your message and at the same time being able to resonate on the right frequency with the people who you want to pull into your movement.
Wow, that is incredibly powerful stuff. And a lot to think about. So we are
hard. Like that's the thing is this is the work. People think writing the book is the work. Or, making the videos for your Kickstarter campaign or whatever your launch is. That stuff's the easy stuff. Actually thinking this through, that's really where the value is. Getting it on paper, once you figured it out, that's like scribe work. It's got to happen, but that's the easy stuff.
For sure. Okay, so I think that's a great place to end it. That was fantastic. So if you could, I want to talk a little bit about what's coming up with you. Could you talk a little bit about your upcoming projects and how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, totally. So the authorincubator.com, it's authorincubator.com is our website. And about every month we launch a new set of books. And the fun thing about our book launches is we will give you these books for free if you are on our list. So if you head over to theauthorincubator.com, you will see ways to sign up for our list. You get a free copy of my book, The Difference, 10 Steps to Writing a Book That Matters. And in addition to getting my book, the next time we have 10 free books available, you'll be able to grab them first. And there will probably be a couple in there that you like. And we'll also ask you to look and see if there's a couple you could recommend to your friends. And you'll get two things, I think, as a listener of this show. First, you'll get some books that you like. But second, you'll get to see some awesome ways that you can market your art, whether it's a book or another project that you're working on. Feel free to swipe some of the copy, model some of the ways that we do our launches to get your work out into the world.
Awesome. And yes, I don't bring a lot of people that I don't know onto this show. It's usually people that like I have had a long-term working relationship for. So that should tell you how highly I think of the Author Incubator and Angela's work, because like this is awesome stuff. All this stuff was awesome. Okay, so is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to impart to my audience?
Yeah, so this is a little woo-woo, but I'm going to leave you guys with one thing to chew on, and it might make no sense now, but in 2 years you might be like, oh, that sounds vaguely familiar. So I'm just really planting a seed for you. But what I want you to think about is the fact that the energy that goes into your project is the energy that comes out of it. And what that translates into is I want you to think about who is the person who had the success you want for your project, whatever you're working on. Maybe it's an art series, maybe it's a book, maybe it's a podcast, whatever your project is. Imagine the person who did this and it was wildly successful. And then I want you to really write down what are the characteristics, what are the traits that person has, what's their personality like, how do they dress, what's their temperament like, what's on their Facebook feed, what's in their Twitter feed, who is this person that would have that success you want to have? And then just check for discrepancies. Are you that person? And how can you be that person now? Become the person now who has the success that you want for your project. And it's tricky, but there is always a way to do it. And the key to having those big successes, the reason why, Russell, for you, I would say that this Kickstarter campaign is going so well is you already became the person who had this successful Kickstarter campaign before you even launched it. And that's the key for all of your projects. If you're in a place where you're wondering, I hope this will work, it's not going to work because the person who had that success was not wondering that for a minute.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on, Angela.
Thanks for having me. This has been super fun.
So that was Angela Lauria from the Author Incubator, and I really dug that episode. It was amazing to see how her advice on Amazon is almost exactly the same advice that I give on Kickstarter. If you liked this episode, head on over and tell Angela how much you enjoyed it and how much she helped you on your journey. And also, while you're at it, head on over to thebusinessofart.us/iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show today. It's the best way for us to know that we're doing a great job. And if you're jonesing for that Kickstarter knowledge, head on over to thebusinessofart.us/Kickstarter toolkit and check out everything I've ever said on the topic of Kickstarter today. And that's it, wannabes and creators. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.